Okay, gentlemen, we are live.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's great to be back. Welcome to another episode of Police Off the Cuff After Hours. I'm Mark DeMayo. I'm your host. My co-host, my partner in all things law enforcement, Bill Cannon, is with us. What's up, Bill?
I'm excited. We're with an actual NYPD celebrity, and in the movies too, not just NYPD.
Yeah, this is a phenomenal night. We have actually a legend, an NYPD legend, an author legend. Let's just before we're going to bring him on right now, but let me just give you a little background into who our guest is tonight. Our guest served in the U.S. Army as a paratrooper during the Korean War. He won 3 Brown Stars and a Purple Heart. Then he joined the NYPD in 1958 and was promoted to detective very quickly. He worked undercover investigating in the 60s, and there was this a pattern cases of homosexuals getting murdered. It turned out to be a movie called Cruising, starring Al Pacino, and our guest worked undercover to crack that case. Then after that, he worked undercover investigating members of the Black Liberation Army. There was a $50,000 bounty put on his head. He was the lead investigator in the investigation into the murder of patrolman Phil Cardillo. And when he retired, he transitioned into film consulting and film acting. Here's just a couple of credits. Countless movies, including The French Connection, The Godfather, 7 Ups. And he's also an author. He has a highly acclaimed book, best-selling. It's called Circle of Six, and it chronicles the murder of Phil Cardillo in Mosque number 7 in Harlem during the 70s. And it's a riveting story, and we're proud to have him tonight. Welcome, Randy Jurgensen, folks.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Randy, that was too lengthy of an intro, man. I was getting embarrassed. You did too much shit,
Really is.
Did I go too long? I didn't pick it out.
It was like, and he won a good conduct medal. He won a spelling bee when he was in 6th grade.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I was just it started off being retired NYPD detective, wrote a book. And then I started looking at his bio. I'm like, you know what? The guy was in the Korean War and won a freaking Purple Heart. I got to mention that.
Holy shit.
And then I was like, oh my God, he was involved in the movie. I remember the movie Cruising. I was, Al Pacino starred in it. It was a big hit. And I thought it was a great movie. And to see that you were an undercover investigating that. And then, undercover in the Black Liberation Army, who knows what you did there? We're going to find out. But it's just, that what could I have excluded from that? Each one of those things is phenomenal.
And no, I didn't win an award in the 6th grade on a spelling bee.
You couldn't spell, huh? It's the one thing I suggested you couldn't do, right?
No, I couldn't.
Randy, one of the things that I read, and I sinfully didn't read your book because I tried to get it and I couldn't get it fast enough, but I'm going to read it post-show. But one of the things I read, which to me was unbelievable, was in 1972, the 3-2, the 2-8, and the 2-5 had over 500 murders. And that was 1/3 of all the murders in the entire city. That's like unbelievable.
Correct. No.
How many was it?
503 precincts.
Yes, that's the, Bill, that would continue for a decade. That would continue for a decade. Yeah. We'd enter into, in the 70s where 2,000 average, between 1,800 and 2,200 homicides were committed a year. And yes, 1/3 of them, if not 1/4 of them, was in the 6th Division between 3 precincts, and the 2-8 being the smallest precinct of the 77 precincts that we did have in the city at the time.
And they said, the manager of the Apollo said the only way to get out of Harlem is to sing or dance, go to Vietnam, or get killed on the streets.
Yeah, that was the man who ran the Apollo, his name was Honey Combs, and he was quoting Sammy Davis Jr., who said that, but he ended up by saying after Sammy Davis Jr. sang and danced his way out of Harlem, he never came back.
Oh,
So
wow.
they were pissed at that. They wanted them to return to the hood, right?
Yeah, it was honestly, this term has been used to death, but it really was the bad old days.
Yeah.
It really was the bad old days.
You're averaging more than
When you mix in with that, starting in 1971, 13 New York City police officers wearing that magnificent blue uniform, they were set up and they were executed. Piagentini and Jones, Foster and Laurie, Curry and Benetti, Irish, Italian, black, white. They didn't discriminate. If you were a cop in that uniform, the Black Liberation Army, that's what they were set out to do. That was their mission.
Right. I remember.
Kill New York City police officers.
When you walk into the 3-2 precinct, to the left immediately there's a memoriam to all the police officers that have been killed that were members of the 3-2.
Yes. And if you're down at police headquarters on that wall that they have down there, the wall of heroes, I mean, we have our fair share from the 6th Division, the 2-8, the 2-5, and the 3-2 up on that wall.
Wow.
It was the bad old days.
Well, back then too, when you investigated homicides, it was a lot of just gumshoe work, right? And CIs, talking to people on the street. And then of course, narcotics doing their buy and bust and shaking the tree. That's how you got a lot of information, I would imagine.
Exactly. A good detective, I'll even say a good cop, he doesn't wake up in that morning, Bill, and solve the homicide. It's the information. It's so important to have that information, and that's how you get along. Now, to speak about myself, I'm born and raised in West Harlem. The 2-8 precinct was a 4-block walk from where I was born and raised on Amsterdam Avenue. So I knew the street. Yeah, I knew the street. I could see somebody taking numbers a block and a half away. I knew exactly drugs and, and prostitution and so forth and stuff along the lines like that. Now, I'm not going to say anything wrong about a cop who's born out on, the back end of Long Island out there,
You could say it, Randy. You could say it. East Cupcake. You can say it. That was the old expression, right?
Yes, it was. But I work with those cops. It's no exaggeration. I mean, the first time that they saw 42nd Street, they were in a uniform,
Right.
So, but I'm telling you, they came around quite quickly. They came around quite quickly. But I had a lot of success. A lot of success in working in Harlem and getting information, because when I was a kid of 12 years of age, I was taking numbers, illegal numbers, and there were places in an apartments where you could go and make sports bets. There was all kinds of television or whatever it was that was coming across, So I knew all those guys. And a lot of those guys were black. And so when I got to Harlem, I mean, they had been elevated. There they were. They were all there. Who was taking numbers? I'm not talking about selling drugs, but who was taking numbers and who was taking sports bets and so forth and so on. So, when something went down, you know what I mean? And the street couldn't give it to me, I would just go over there and, and I would just simply say, you really, guys, you're not working tomorrow. You're not working tomorrow. This is what I need. And I get it. And I would get the information.
Old-fashioned police work. You'd shut them down if they wouldn't cooperate.
Exactly.
No one's doing business, right?
Exactly. Some of my best information came from the doctor. And the doctor was the man who sold bathtub alcohol on Sunday because you couldn't get alcohol on Sunday. And so, I would go to him on Saturday and say, you're not working tomorrow. And that's how my information came about.
And the people trusted you in the neighborhood because you grew up there.
Exactly.
123rd. I always, when I have a picture of 123rd Street, I always remember sitting up and looking way up the hill towards what they call it. Hamilton Heights was the 3-0 precinct, right? And
yes.
you could see up that hill and see
exactly
the cars coming down and the buses going up.
Exactly.
And I remember by the projects were on the right, and there was a Citibank to the left. Maybe not when you were on the job, but when and just looking down Amsterdam, but up that hill going up into Hamilton Heights.
They all had names in a. It was the 7-9 was Bedford Stuyvesant. That was to live and die in Bedford Stuy. The 4-1 had Fort Apache, and the 2-8, which was the smallest one that had the most homicides, and that was called the Murder Factory.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you aren't so far away from being a murder factory in the 6th Division there.
That's it. That's where the 2-8 was. It was the 6th Division. In fact, little Randy Jurgensen stories. In 1972, I believe it was WINS, and they came out and they said, "You give us 22 minutes, we'll give you the world." And I had a sign made up, and I put it over the door of the squad. You give me 22 minutes, I'll give you a homicide.
The 7-5 stole that from you because they had that on their wall too. And they also used to say in the 7-5, if you know someone who killed someone, let us know so you can go. I love that.
The other one was the inspector made me take this one down, but it said the other one said that it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? And I put that over the radio thing, and I put it up in the squad, and I said, "It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your killer is?" So, yeah,
no one has a sense of humor anymore, right?
Oh well, look, that's the way you get along.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to get along.
Do you know who your murderer is?
Randy, but most of the homicides in 1972 were narcotics related, correct?
Yes, they all had it one way or another. One way, they were another. And I know what what the term is, a ground ball.
Sure.
So
that's another copism.
Yeah, most of my homicides were practically solved at the scene. The cops were great. The uniformed cops were great. So there it was. They knew who did it. They gave me the information, so forth and so on. But the assassinations of the police officers, that was something different. I worked on the Wiley Hoffer, the Wiley Hoffer case, and of course they would write a story about that called the Marcus Nelson, which I was very much involved in, and a character came out of that, and his name was called Kojak. And you know what happened there. You know what happened after that. Well, working on that case, that was a tough one. That really was a tough one. I mean, it wasn't a ground ball.
Right. Let me ask how did you hook up with Sonny Grosso as a partner?
Well, Sonny Grosso has a few years on me, but Sonny Grosso was born in East Harlem, and I was born in West Harlem.
Oh, was he born over by Rayo's, by
Sonny was.
Pleasant Avenue over there, right?
Yes.
That's where all the wise guys were over there, right?
Right, Bill. Sonny was born on 118th Street, and I was born on the east side, and I was born on 123rd Street on the west side, and both of us were born at home due to one reason or another. But he had 5 or 6 years on me, but Sonny was raised on the west side, so I must have been about 12 or 13 years of age, and I knew of Sonny Grosso. He was running the basketball games and stuff like that. That's how I met him. Now, I sort of fibbed about going into the military. I went in at 16. And and of course, Sonny, he upped his draft or whatever it was. And Sonny went in when he was 20, 21. And we were both in Korea. I didn't know that he was in Korea, at the same time.
Yeah, because you guys could have ran the numbers in Korea had you known.
Well, when I got to the 2-5 and I met Sonny Grosso, I mean, that was my reputation, You're still taking single action.
Is the numbers guy. What's the number today?
That was it. That's the truth. So,
Sonny Grosso, though, even his face, he looks like a tough mofo, right?
oh, you know what? You know how still waters run deep? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Oh, boy. That was it.
He was a tough guy, right?
Yes, he was.
It said it all over his face. You looked at him and you said, I don't want to mess with this guy, right?
Yes, he was. But you know what he had to go along with that, Bill? He had brains.
Right.
He had brains. Sometimes some of that gets lost in the toughness. You know what I'm talking about? Not with Sonny. He was very, very cautious, very cautious. So, Bill, when I was graduated the academy, which I almost didn't get out of because they tried to arrest me for taking the numbers while I was in the police academy. Yeah, but the two cops, we worked it out.
Oh my God!
When I went to the 2-5, when I got there, the orders were already posted. Sonny Grosso was already there. He was there about a year and a half. He was standing out on the steps, and he welcomed me. He welcomed me into the 2-5, and from that point on, we were never separated.
Wow.
No, we were never separated.
But how come you didn't get involved in the French Connection? That was out of narcotics, though, right?
But I did.
Oh, okay.
So when they were down at narcotics, I guess I did about a year and a half in uniform, and they just pulled me off the street. And I really didn't look in 1957, 1958. I didn't really look like the Eddie Egan type of kid. I didn't have the last name of Murphy or O'Connor. You know what I mean? The police commissioners, and it really was the Irish that ran the job. No doubt. So they pulled me off basically on my looks.
There's a handsome dude right there. You see that?
It's not popping up.
Oh, it's not popping up yet. Uh-oh.
Click on it.
So when I went down to narcotics, Mario Biaggi was in charge. And of course, Bill, Mario Biaggi would go on to be a congressman.
Right.
So when Mario Biaggi came, there was like these 4 questions. He says, where were you raised? Where were you born? Blah, blah, blah. So, okay, you're undercover narcotics. And Sonny Grosso was there. So 1962, you'll love this one. In 1962, they began to work on a case that was by Patsy Fuca. His name was Patsy Fuca. He was an Italian from Brooklyn, and he hung out at the Copa, and he was throwing money around, like it was growing on trees. And Sonny and Eddie spotted him. They followed him and so forth and so on. And that started the case. Now, they pulled me to go on that case, but never in the inner circle. I was out there doing legwork. I was out there doing stakeouts. I was out there following certain people and stuff like that as they put the case together. So in 1963, which Frank just spoke about, I left narcotics, and they sent me and gave me an apartment down on Bleecker Street, and I went undercover into the homosexual world or the gay world, because there were 2 people. One was white, one was black. They were called the Salt and Pepper Team. They were shaking down the homosexuals. They were assaulting them. And finally, we had 4 killings. So I stayed down there, and I worked that for about 6 months. After I caught them, I got a gold shield, and I returned up to Harlem.
When you say you were doing undercover there, what were you doing?
In narcotics?
No. When you were working that case with the,
it took me quite a while. I had to ingratiate myself into that world. I found 2 different worlds. I found I I found the homosexual that literally worked on Wall Street and was never, not a problem whatsoever, at being a homosexual, if you know what I mean. It was a secret, good money, good, well-educated. And then I found the other side, which was called the leather side, with the motorcycle jackets and the leather pants and stuff like that. And they were, to say the very least, they were very, very aggressive, very aggressive. And so I saw if I was going to get anywhere, I couldn't believe that the people working on Wall Street would be out killing homosexuals. And some of these here, Mark, not only did they kill them, I mean, they dismembered them. We found parts floating in the river and parts in a 55-gallon drum. And this was all down on 14th Street in the meat market. So that's where I began to hang out. I hung out. And like everything else, I suppose just good police work, dogged, just keeping it up. Sure enough, one night I came across them. And they had taken somebody from the street and they had him in the car. And they went to the precinct. That was a game that they used to do. They would go to the precinct, one would go inside and he would ask directions. And there was a big window there and they made sure that they parked the car where, the homosexual would see, the gay guy would see him in there talking. They'd come out and say, all right, so far we're good. That's $100. Now, remember in the 60s, what really $100? That's probably like $1,000 today. Then they would actually keep the guy overnight, Mark, and they would take him into court. And they would stand in the back of the court. One of them would walk up to the front of the court, talk to the bridge man and probably say, what part is 1A? What part is 2A? And the bridge man would say yes. And they'd come back and they'd say to him, all right, that's another $200. Then they would take him downstairs, put him in a car and drive him up to the parents' bank. And then they would have him call his parents. The parents would come down and take the $300 or $400 out of the bank. And of course, they took the money and they let him. They did that for months.
That was pretty brazen what they were doing.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, Randy, why was it called the bag murders? Why was it called the bag murders?
Because eventually that's where they started to find them. They found them in shopping bags. And I'm making it like there's 100 of them. It's not so. There was about 4 or 5 of them, when I was working on it.
Right.
And so we got them. We got them good. We never got them for the murders. We did not. That would come later on. They were known at the time as the Salt and Pepper Team. So I got a gold shield. I got a gold shield and I got sent up. Now, I have to tell you.
Was this 1970? What year was this?
No. I got up to Harlem in 1964. The case was made in 1962.
Wow.
Robin Moore wrote the book in the late in the late 60s regarding the book. And then, of course, the picture was made in 1971. But it all emanated from that. From that case.
And you're referring to the movie Cruising with Al Pacino?
No, I'm referring to the French Connection.
Oh, okay, the French Connection.
The French Connection.
Okay.
So while I was, it's a couple of things I would tell you. So while I'm working on, I know you can appreciate this. So while I'm working on 2 guys that now are suspected of killing homosexuals. They're suspected of doing that. And there was no way that nobody could contact me. If I thought that I was deep in narcotics, nobody knew where I lived. That job has never been done before or since. I was on Bleecker Street in the apartment. So I got paid every 2 weeks. I would go up to Harlem because we got paid in paper then.
So yeah, but you didn't need the money. You had all the numbers money. You didn't need your check. He's the only guy turning down his checks. We got to get out of
don't
here.
think, don't think I didn't hear that.
Hey, let's go back. You said we got paid in paper. What does that mean?
Paid by check.
Oh, so you had to go back to the command to get your
Yeah, no, but I would have an inspector that would meet me at a given location and give me my check.
So, Randy, if I was you, I would have said, Inspector, get me a cup of coffee too, as long as you deliver my check. He's having a big boss, deliver a check to a detective, right?
I tell you, there's a lot of things that I did that, okay, it is what it is. But that assignment, Bill, I wasn't having any fun at all, if you know what I'm talking about.
Nah, that's a tough job you had to.
So I get paid, and he says to me, you have to go to the Manhattan District Attorney's office at 2:00 in the morning. Whenever I had to go there, it was always 2:00 in the morning. Now, I have to tell you, Bill, by now I'm in character. I have the star over my eyes. I got company. I'm hanging out with these guys that are taking me to various places and stuff like that. So that's how I go over to the Manhattan District Attorney's office at 2:00 in the morning. And Najari's sitting in the office. There's two other people in there, and Najari says,
Hold on, Randy. Najari is the DA back in 1962 or whatever.
Yes, he would go on to
Come
be
on,
the special prosecutor.
you're dating even us. We're not that old.
So he said, I'll never forget it. He says, "Are you a fucking cop?" My quick answer to him was, "I used to be." And he said to me, "Well, we got this going on in Greenwich Village." He says, "There's a guy performing a lewd and indecent act." Now, Bill, what would a lewd and indecent act be to you? It got to be something about sex. Maybe the guy's having sex with an animal. It's a lewd and indecent act. And I'm going to wear a wire, which I didn't want to do.
Right.
So they gave me the wire. I go up there, and this lewd and indecent act is Lenny Bruce. So after 2 or 3 times up there, I wind up locking up Lenny Bruce. Can you imagine? I'm working all this time on Lenny Bruce, and there are 2 guys out there killing human beings, but they pull me off of that.
Some politician thought that this was more important, right?
Well, you know what? I learned later on it was the Greenwich Village Committee and how powerful they were. If they wanted something done, it got done.
Yeah.
So, like I say, I broke the case, and then I got the Gold Shield, and I went up to Harlem. I got up to Harlem
in
1964.
Hey, let me cut you off before we go on to the uptown. When you're working that case, the cruising case, and you're hanging out, you're in the gay community, you're in gay bars, you have friends now, and nobody's looking at you saying this guy never hooks up, he never gets lucky, he always strikes out every night.
Nope.
Don't they send in another undercover with you to be like, my boyfriend or something?
No. I found myself in a narcotic operation, and this was a good score for me, a good street score for me. And the man said, we're going to share this now. And I said, no, I'm not. We're going to share this now. And there was a couple of people looking at me like sideways. And I said to myself, boy, am I in trouble here? But no, that was the closest that I was going to have to come to use a needle, like to get out of there. You know what I'm talking about? No. But during doing the gay thing, no, I did not. I actually was invited to and attended a gay marriage. 2 guys long before,
it was fashionable,
legitimate or whatever it was. Yeah. No, I was really in that community. I was really in that community. And I don't know if you saw the movie or not.
I saw it.
Well, what's his name? Don Cardillo. I can't think of his name. Don. He played my friend in the apartment down the hall. Well, they have in the movie, they have him killed. In real life, he didn't get killed. Do you know how long after cruising was over for years, we remained friends?
Wow.
Yeah.
We remained friends.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
You know, Randy, I lived in the Village. I lived on Barrow Street, and I moved down there right after I got out of the academy in 1985. And there was this bar called the Cubby Hole. And I walked by, and it was loaded with women. I go, holy shit, what a score. So I go to walk in, and this rather large woman, the size of a linebacker, steps in front of me and says, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go in here and have a beer. She goes, are you aware that this is a lesbian bar? And I said, no, I wasn't. But now that you told me, I'm going in there. You're not stopping me. And she let me in, but all the crowd all moved away from me as I had a beer. And then I just walked out. I just wanted to show her that she couldn't stop me.
let's do a little promotion here. We'll take a break right now. Hey, Randy, we got a sponsor. It's a hot sauce. It's a killer hot sauce. This is Killer Hot right here. And that's Killer Hot. They have incredible artwork. If you go on to silkcityhotsauce.com, you can purchase this amazing hot sauce. Every single bottle comes with pure ingredients. Locally grown peppers are the foundation of every bottle of Silk City hot sauce. And just use the code silkcityhotsauce.com and put in the code OTC, which is for off the cuff, and get a 15% discount. Jeff Levine is the owner. I've tasted all 5 of the hot sauce, and I tell you, man, they're really, really good. And I've never had better hot sauce. You know, I'm on a diet right now, and it fits perfectly in my organic diet. And check it out, silkcityhotsauce.com.
It's on the screen right now. You can see for a 15% discount, you just have to put OTC along with your order. It stands for off the cuff.
We got like 5 different flavors, and it's awesome. So
I just want to shout out to some of our live chatters: Ryan Investigative Group, Blondie 1025, MC's Audio, Lisa Marie, Cat in the Hat, of course. Where would we be without Cat in the Hat? Cheated No More. I got to get to the derivation of that name. I love it, though. Audie Alfaro, he's a deputy in Florida. Bob Geis, I worked with him actually in the 2-4 squad. He was in the 2-5. Black Rose 11. Of course, Peter Pranzo, the legendary 3-2 lieutenant and street crime lieutenant. Who else we got? Rachella Pranzo. Of course, we got to mention your wife, or else I'll get in trouble for not doing that. And GK5717, Dookie 4000. Thank you guys for all watching. And we right now have the great Randy Jurgensen. And I guess we should start approaching the biggest story that you're here to talk about, which is what your book, The Circle of Six, was about. And we'll let you tell that story.
May I just give a little shout out?
Absolutely.
really,
I'd like to shout out to my friend and partner of 40 years, Joe Donnie Brasco Pistone.
Yeah, the FBI agent, right?
Yes.
That's great. Yeah, yes. I read his book, and actually we were trying to get him on here and through someone else, but he does these podcasts every once in a while too.
Yes, he does.
He seems like he's still a bull. You know, he's still in good shape.
Yes, he is. Yes, he definitely is.
Randy, you're pushing 90, right?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Don't do that to me.
I don't want to do it to you, but you look fantastic. And
Thank
you
you.
look like you're healthy as all hell.
Yeah.
I guess you're living right. You're still taking numbers, I guess.
No, but I am playing lotto.
That's great. That's great. You look fantastic. I mean,
thank you.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
I love to see cops that live forever, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's funny. I used to have a joke where, you know, they say in your will you should have a do not resuscitate. And I said, no way. My wife wants a do resuscitate because when I die, my pension dies with me. So I'm going to be 60 pounds and they're going to keep me alive. Keep collecting that pension.
Same here. Same here.
So
Frank, I just want to about that cruising, right?
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, at the bar where it all broke out, it's a famous that famous bar where they had the riots. I can't think of it. Stonewall.
Stonewall, yeah.
So I get invited a couple of years ago to come down to the Stonewall for a book signing. And I go down to the Stonewall and I meet lieutenants, sergeants, all kinds of cops, and they're gay, and they're proud. There's a big unit within the New York City Police Department that they're gay.
Yeah, they call it the Gay Officers Action League.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
so I went down there and
I'm not a member. I just know about it.
I spoke about the book and so forth and so on. And it's Bill, Frank, it's like coming full circle, I guess, right?
You know what I used to tell people? I was trying to get across town and I got freaking caught in the gay parade. That's the 5th year in a row now.
Yeah, it's all.
And that's one of the best parades in the city, by the way, for people that are tuning in.
It's an amazing parade.
It definitely is.
That and the Halloween Day parade, nothing beats that. I don't care where you're from. But let's start talking about. So now you're done with the that investigation, the cruising investigation, and now you become part of doing some undercover work for against the Black Liberation Army.
Right. Well, this case is important. In 1968, I'm back doing some undercover work, but this time it's really fun. It seems that the mob, all these places, they're money run. In other words, to get in, it's $5, it's $10 or whatever it is to get in. One of these places is called Authors, and it's on 54th Street, something like that. So I'm sent down there. I'm at Authors, and people come running in and they're screaming, "There's a cop!" And there's a scuffle with a cop. So I go running outside, and it's taking place in an alleyway, Frank, and absolutely 1 or 2 shots go off, and the cop staggers out, and the cop is shot. He gets off 1 more shot. It goes across the street. It hits the bank window. The alarm goes off, and I'm able to get both of these mutts, and they are from Brooklyn. They're from Brooklyn. Now, that case happens in 1968, and we then decide, the Manhattan District Attorney decides that they're going to try this case for the electric chair. And so that's what we're going to do. That's the case that puts the $50,000 on my head. So in 1971, I testify in that case. We convict them. And of course, the federal government did away with the electric chair at that time. So these guys get, 25 to life, right? The reason I bring that up, that case is so strong that when we began to catch over the years the Black Liberation Army killers, and we put them on trial, one way or another, that case was brought into the present trial. It set precedents because that case, a cop was killed, and here these guys from the Black Liberation Army were killing cops. So to start with,
Randy, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you think that the death penalty is a deterrent?
No, it's not. I know for a fact it's not. It's not.
Why do you say
that? The death penalty is the most expensive case that you can come down with, because on an average, the person who's going to go to the chair it's 10 years. There's automatic 3 appeals. The average on these appeals is $1 million. It's $1 million every time it's an appeal. And so no. life imprisonment. That was it.
But you know, Randy, the unfortunate thing is life imprisonment doesn't mean that anymore. You know, you see the governor of this state paroling cop killers.
Well, you know, I presently have out on the street 3 people that killed cops. I could call their names, but it's not beneficial to what we're speaking about here. So those 3 people on an average, right? They did 40, 41, and 42 years in jail. They finally got out. They're cop killers.
Right.
And they're out after 42 years. So life imprisonment, you're exactly right. No, it's not applicable. Somewhere along the line, you know, the cop that was killed 40 years ago is forgotten about. And the parole board, you know, it's expensive keeping these guys in there. They're paying their medical benefits and stuff. Right. Believe me, that's the politics of the whole thing, you know. So they put these guys back out on the street. No matter what the Fuhrer is, and we've testified before and I've given my impact statements and stuff like that. These guys are coming out, and they're going to come out. I got a guy coming out in September of this year. He's a cop killer, and he'll come out. Out of the 5 that I locked up, you know, 2 are dead. 1 died in prison, but there will be 3 out on the street if this guy lives. Okay. So it's not life imprisonment. You're right.
Well, now we can get towards the mosque incident.
Yeah. So in 1971, we've had 4 police officers set up and shot and killed.
Can you give us some examples?
I beg your pardon?
Can you give us some examples of what you mean by set up?
Well, you know, a cop walks in, there's a stick up in the grocery store, but this, that, you know, 9 times out of 10, that cop's going to come out on top. But cops do get killed. These cops were called to a specific location, and it was timed how long these cops would get there. The Black Liberation Army did this. What they would do is they would call in a cop in trouble, a cop at this location, blah, blah, blah. And then they would stand there and they would see how long it took the police cars to get there. So I will go with Piagentini and Jones, white and black, 3-2 precinct. They get a call that there's a domestic disturbance. So a domestic disturbance means 1 car. It's not like a cop in trouble. It's not shots fired. It means it's going to be 1 car. And I'm not going to say that people are not going to pay attention to it, but it's 1 car, right? They get out of the car and they start walking towards the building, and they are fired upon triangularly. They're fired upon triangularly. Now, when they hit the ground, Jones is still alive. Piagentini is not. They take Piagentini's gun and they use this. I really shouldn't be saying this because it's so hurtful. There are still families around. And they take Piagentini's gun and they use Piagentini's gun to start finishing off. And then they keep the gun as a souvenir. They were set up and executed. Then they would go back and they would, of course, all of the story I'm telling you is when we break the case and we get the girls that are involved in it and so forth, they're the ones that tell us what happens after that. They come back, they celebrate, they celebrate over the killings. So that was Piagentini and Jones. Then they had Stewart, a black sergeant in the 2-8, and Artie Plate. It went bad. The shootings went bad. These guys escaped, thank God, but the radio cars were all shot up. Then we have a a cop by the name of Joe Mazzilli, a rookie working in the 2-8. And his radio car is coming down the street and it draws sniper fire all into the car. This is all 1971. So whenever we get now a 1013 call, you know, it's all hands on deck. Let's keep going. It got to the point now where in the 2-8, no matter what the job was, there was a backup car going to it. That's what we were living on. That's what was happening.
And you were carrying a shotgun with you back then too, right?
I carried the shotgun, and yes, I sawed it off. I sawed it off. I put a strap on the shoulder. Yes, and I carried it on my side. Yes, I did. Remember,
was that to do the numbers collections or?
Let me ask you a question. What's the point of sawing it off?
No, I couldn't have it long barrel. I couldn't conceal it.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't conceal it. So
so the purpose of sawing it off is so you can conceal it.
Yeah.
I never do that.
Yeah.
So okay. So let's go back. So basically, we have a series of situations where cops are getting set up by the Black Liberation Army.
Yes.
They're pulling in these phony calls. When do you get involved?
So Twyman Myers, who I locked up with Sonny Grosso, that was the end of Sonny Grosso's career. We got called to go down to 113th Street. And, you know, and we both kept saying, and I kept telling to Sonny, I was really seasoned up there. Sonny was only up there a couple, 3 years, you know, working narcotics all those years. And now all of a sudden, you know, so something was not right. So I drove the car in the wrong way into the street. And as we started walking down, Twyman Myers was running at us with a gun. He ran at us with a gun. But the problem was there was a woman up on the stairs and there was another guy on the stairs, and they both had guns. So instead of we backed away from Twyman Myers and we ran around the car. And the two that were on the stoop, you know, look, let's face it, I let one go. And the two that were on the stoop beat it back into the hallway. Twyman didn't make it into the hallway. We grabbed him and we wrestled our way up into the hallway. And suddenly she came back downstairs with the gun. And as I was taking her with the gun, and the guy at the top of the stairs, he fired one in the ceiling for I don't know. So Sonny went up, Frank, up the banister, and they went over the banister, and they came down on Sonny Grosso's leg, and that was the end for Sonny. He didn't walk right, he couldn't do it. He would eventually get out on 3/4. So I locked both of them up. So now Twyman Myers becomes the #1 cop killer in the United States of America. The FBI make him #1. He's wanted in the killing of 4 cops. We get information that he is at 125th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. This is April the 14th, 1972. I now have 6 cops who don't carry their own gun. One guy's got a carbine. The other guy's got a shotgun. We're going after Twyman Myers. It's 125th Street and Amsterdam Avenue, and we're all on the radio. And over comes the call, 1013. Cop in trouble. He's on the 2nd floor, 102 West 116th Street. I was so tempted to leave because I thought maybe we were being drawn off. I was so tempted to leave. There were 6 of us. I was tempted to leave the 2 of them. But in that instance, I knew the 2 of them could not take Twyman from the things that we heard. So we all went. And when I got there, Frank, I was amazed that, you know, I was in the 2-8 since 1964.
Randy, can I just stop you for one second?
Sure.
Just for our listeners, you discussed earlier that this was a technique they used. They would call a 1013 at another location to get the cops away from an area where they intended to commit a crime. So you were cognizant of that. So you were reluctant to leave the post on 125th and Amsterdam.
I was.
Okay.
I was.
Okay.
So what next happens over the radio? It's shots fired. Now I'm driving on the sidewalk. I mean, now it's all get out. So I get to 116th Street, and I was really surprised because 102 West 116th Street, Bill, is the mosque.
Right.
I didn't recognize the address, but as soon as I got to the building and I saw it was the building, look, I don't care if you were there 6 months, this is going to be a problem. That building, this is going to be a problem. So I'm going down there, and of course, all the people are in the street. And Bill, you would do the same thing. Frank would do the same thing. I'm not running there. I'm walking down. I'm looking sideways. I'm looking for that familiar face that I'm going to come back to later on when this is over, and I'm going to be able to talk to that person,
Right.
So I get there, and when I get there, I see the commander, and he says to me, two of them are shot. Two of them are shot. They were trapped inside. He really didn't know the whole story and stuff like that. And he said to me, "Are you catching? Meaning, is this my case?" And I said, "No." I said, "I'm not." So it takes me about 2 or 3 minutes, and I see what's going on, and I quickly run into the mosque, and I see people. I see people downstairs, and I see cops downstairs and stuff like that. Nobody knows what's going on. The only people that are going to know what's going on, Bill, are the people that have been brought over into the hospital. So I jump in the car. I get up to the hospital. My dad works there, in charge of the maintenance department. I get up there. I see my father. He's worried like hell, thinking it's so. I go. It's a triage. It's a triage. I look in the first one, and there's a cop, and he's convulsing. They're trying to hold his legs down. I go into the second one. The cop is actually screaming, and he's got his gun out. They took our guns. They got our guns. They're beating us, blah, 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 so forth and so on. And I can understand the moment. I go into the third tent, and there is Vito Navarro sitting down there, bleeding from the mouth, bleeding from the ear, bleeding all over. And now I realize the shot cop is Phil Cardillo, who I knew. I knew him as a civilian. I knew him before he became a cop. And I told him, I said, "Vito, don't worry. St. Luke's, we've never lost a cop here. He's going to be in good hands." I said, "Vito, I need for you to come with me." The nurse says he's not going anywhere. Now we took a towel, wet towel, and I wrapped it around his face, and he said he would come with me. As I started to walk out, I'm telling you, it's in the book. I start to walk out with him, and there's the police commissioner and the mayor standing there. And the police commissioner calls me by name. I got this wounded cop, calls me by name to come over. And I come over to the police commissioner. The mayor is standing there. I didn't realize how tall Mayor Lindsay was. And the police commissioner says to me, "Things are under control over there at 116th Street." He said, and he said something else. And I said to him, I said, "But they're still calling 1013s. Honest to God, the next words out of his mouth was, and he said to me, "It's a disturbance. It's not a riot." And I said, before I could finish saying it out, the mayor says, "A riot?" And the police commissioner says, "No, it's not a riot over there." And with that, they start to talk. I walked away.
But you could tell this was political bullshit.
Oh my God.
On. Yeah.
Oh my God. But Bill, at that time, that's not where my mind is. You know what it is. I need this information. Not only me, but
well, Randy, your intention was to do a show up with this cop, to identify the people that did this.
That's exactly what I was going to do. Right. You summed up the whole thing. So when I get him back there, I got him in my own car, which by the time I get him back there and I'm walking down towards the mosque, they overturned my car and set it on fire. So I get to the door at the mosque. Now, when I left, Bill, the mosque was surrounded by cops. I come back, it's surrounded by Muslims. I can't get in the door. And he says, you're not coming in here. So I took a step back, you know, I took a step back. I opened my coat, you know, there was the shotgun. And I said, I'm not going in here, but he's going in here. And they said, yeah, man. And they let him in. And Vito went downstairs, right? And Vito started to do whatever he was going to do. Before Vito finished, right? I'm going to call his name. He hasn't sued me yet. Congressman Rangel shows up. And Congressman Rangel is talking to the commissioner, not the commissioner at the hospital, but the commissioner on the scene. His name is Ben Ward, and he would later be the police commissioner. He talks to Ben. Ben Ward comes downstairs and says, all police have to leave. Now the cops, they got handcuffs on these guys, Vito. All have to leave. You have to leave. That's an order. Seidman is down there. Seidman's not leaving. Seidman would not leave.
And Seidman
right?
is the chief of detectives,
Chief
a tough
of
guy,
detectives.
a
Chief
tough
of
guy always
detectives.
smoking a cigar, right?
You got it. Seidman picks up the telephone and Seidman calls police headquarters and he gets Card. Card would later be a police commissioner.
Right.
He tells Card, I need reinforcements. I need people to come up here. Card denies it and Card tells him, leave the mosque. Seidman reluctantly and 6 or 7 cops leave, but they broker a deal with Congressman Rangel that he's going to bring in the prisoners, the suspects, whatever you want to call them, Bill. He's going to bring them in. He's not going to bring them into the 2-8 in the middle of Harlem. He's going to bring them down to the 2-4. So now the investigation is all moves down to the 2-4.
And that never, ever happened, right?
Well, as I'm speaking to you here tonight at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, they still haven't showed up.
Yeah.
The prisoners still have not showed up. So that's the beginning. That's the beginning of what we're talking about, what became known as the mosque case, the Phil Cardillo case, and the investigation. Honestly, you know, I'm a cop's cop, but the cops, their investigation is who gave that order, who said not to bring the prisoners in, who said to leave the scene. When I left the scene, Bill, the guy, his name was Mitchell 5X Sansan. He's the guy that took the gun from the cop. Of course, I'm telling it like it's in real time. I would find this out later. He's mopping up the crime scene. Right. He's mopping up the blood. And so out the door.
Randy, could I just stop you for 1 second?
Sure.
What was the scene like outside the mosque on 116th Street? How many people were there?
Yeah, snake dancing, cars overturned, small fires, bricks off the roof.
So there was a riot. There was yeah.
Big time. Seidman ran. Seidman had a run. And so now, why it's like that? Because while I'm downstairs, while they're in there, an inspector gets on the bullhorn and he stands up and he says, all white cops leave the area. All white cops return to your command. Now, you understand in 1972, we are being led by veterans from the Second World War. They're all captains and stuff like that. I'm a Korean veteran, so I already got 15 years on the job. There's a bunch of Korean guys, and now we're starting to get guys from Vietnam. Why do I talk like that? I say this to you, Bill, Frank, because we are a semi-military organization.
Right.
An order given is an order obeyed. And so the white cops left the area. They left 12 cops there. They couldn't control the streets. Absolutely not. The streets were in total turmoil. So now I leave. I get a call on the radio. Randy, come on back. Bring your unit back. So I come back with only 4 guys this time. Go up on the roof. These bricks are going to kill somebody. We go up on the, we go up on the roof. There's a lot more to this, but we go up on the roof. We stop the kids from throwing the bricks off. That makes more people to come into the street. It's totally chaos now. It's gone. Up comes an inspector, and he says to me personally, are you authorized with that weapon? And I said, I am. He tells the cop that's there, take that weapon from me. So I broke the weapon down and I gave it. Then they searched the other 4 cops that I was with, and they removed that weapon. Remember, we had these weapons. By the way, we were authorized. We had these weapons. Now we're going to come downstairs. We come downstairs. Out of the 4 of us, 3 of us wound up in the hospital. 3 of us wound up in the hospital. You know, the first time I walked into the hospital, I said, Dad, don't worry about it. The second time I was carried in. That's what went on in that day. And there's so much more that went on in that day. Now, to think, Frank, Bill, to think that you're going to put this case together, that you're going to, you're going to go out and find out who did this when we're not allowed to go to the mosque, when Minister Farrakhan is saying,
Randy, could I just stop you for 1 second?
Sure.
I have a pretty good idea of the answer, but I just want to, for our listeners, was the orders not to do police work coming right from the mayor? Was that where the orders were coming from?
I couldn't prove that. I couldn't prove that, but I'll tell you this right now. There's no captain is going to get up there and separate black and white cops. There's no captain that's going to say, there's no inspector that's just going to say, everybody out of the basement, leave the prisoners. No, this had to come, the fish stinks from the head on back.
Ben Ward gave the order, from what I understand.
Through
Charlie Rangel, right?
I would say that Ben Ward was following orders.
Yes.
I don't think the man has passed on, so I don't think he had balls enough to give that order. You know what I'm saying? I believe he was following orders. And look, I did a pretty good, 2 or 3 year investigation here. And I saw where all the rocks were hidden, if you will, but everybody from that day on, everybody just made a 180 away from that case. Nobody wanted the case. Nobody wanted it to go. And, everybody was hoping and praying down at the Puzzle Palace at 1PP there that Phil Cardillo would live. Because, Bill, if he lived, right, it would be just another cop shot, so forth and so on. But Phil died.
Right.
And once he died, all bets were off.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Like, you're in the middle of all this stuff right now, and the job's not backing you. I mean, how do you feel at this point right now? Because you have an enemy, you know who your enemy is, and you have you're ready to fight, and then you turn around and the people who are supposed to have your back, they're gone. They've joined the enemy. Well, what do you do now?
Well, what happened was, and I would later on, I would pay for what I'm going to tell you I did. So I just took every piece of paper there was, every single thing that had to do with it, every newspaper article. I just took it all out of the precinct. I put it in my car and I drove to 20th Century down on 56th Street. That's where we made the French Connection out of. And I set up an office there. They gave me an office with phones. They gave me assistants who weren't cops. And that's where I worked the case. And immediately the word was, he's left the reservation. He's a rebel. He's gone without whatever he's doing. I actually, and I got this cooperation. Frank, I'm going to tell you the truth. I needed a cop. He was working 8 to 4 in the 3-2. I told him, get a cab, get down here now, come down. It's the Cardillo case. Not only didn't they do that, they drove the radio car right down and delivered them to me. And I kept them there for hours and we went through it. I had schematics. 20th Century replicated the mosque, the hallway, and so forth and so on. I did all of that. And all the inspector that was in charge of me was, I'm going to fire you. You're disobeying orders. You're doing this. I just kept right on walking. I never even listened. They got to the point. They withheld my check. They weren't going to pay me until a lieutenant stepped in and said,
you had to go meet the inspector up in the park in Harlem?
Yeah. So So what happens now? What happens now, Frank and Bill? Here comes a man by the name of Sam DeMilla from the PBA, and the world changed. Whatever I needed, whatever I wanted, blah, 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 I got it. And I continued to work down there. It was like a splinter from where it was. I was away from everybody. And some of the precincts were very, very happy that I did that, because whenever I went into the precinct, whatever was going on in the precinct, it stopped. Jurgensen's here. You know what I'm talking about? It's the mosque case. So they were very, very happy. They were totally and completely happy that, you know, that I was off going someplace. Then, of course, you know, I began to, you know, as best I could, I knew I needed a Muslim. They said I couldn't go to, I couldn't go to the mosque. I wasn't going to do that. I couldn't go to the mosque. So I remember turning to Vito Navarra, the cop of the, I said, I'm going to make them come to me. And so I put up all these wanted, all by hand. I rolled them all up. And I went to the division in Brooklyn, and I asked the division, put this out in every precinct that you got, especially in the squad. I did the same thing in the Bronx. If you lock up a Muslim, call me, I'll be there. And sure enough, it took 8 months. Sure enough, I must have went 15, 20 times with no luck at all. And one day I'm on my way home. I was coming on my way home. It was my father-in-law's birthday, and I bought the infamous cannolis. I was gonna bring him at home. I got a call. We got a Muslim over here at the precinct. I walked in. Bill, Frank, when I walked in and I saw him and he was chained to the radiator, I knew I had it. I didn't even talk to him. I knew I had it. And sure enough, it was him. It was
one of the guys that were in the mosque.
Yes, he was the witness, right? He was the witness. Foster 2X Thomas. And instead of, when I got him, instead of taking him into a precinct, because I knew what was going to happen, I called up Joe Pistone, FBI on 69th Street. And I said, Joe, he said, come on up. And I came up, and I always remember he said to me after we were up there a while, he said, is it true you got cannolis in the car?
Randy, let me ask you something though. When you did the show up with Vito, he picked some people out, right? Because there was guys in handcuffs. Right. Did you ever find out who they were?
No.
So he ID'd some guys that were perps that were beating them. They were locked in a hallway or in a stairwell, and doors were locked at both ends, and they got the shit beat out of them, right?
The shooter wasn't, Bill, the shooter wasn't down there. The shooter was at Harlem Hospital as an aided case. But the guy who took the gun, which we never recovered, he took it upstairs. Minister Farrakhan, word for get the gun out. So he was there. The guy that when they went in, that locked the doors, that trapped them in there, he was there. He was down there. I would learn this later on. It took me a couple of years. I would learn it later on, a couple of years. Yes. No, the shooter was an aided case.
But do you know this to this day? Do you know who the shooter is?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
But there's not enough probable cause or evidence to arrest him?
Right now, he's like in a halfway house. And for the last year or so, you know, he's been dying. Yes. He's been dying. Yes. He's in Harlem. Yes. And he's been visited. Well, this is a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago. He was visited by Minister Louis Farrakhan. Yeah. No, after the trial, no. He disappeared. He was afraid that he was going to be killed. In fact, you know, he went on record by saying that I was going to kill him. And when they asked him the proof, he said, yes, look in detective's eyes. Just look in his eyes. He's going to kill me. So, yeah.
But for a couple of times during your police career, there was a contract out on your life, right?
Yes.
By the BLA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
And they aired it out, Bill. They aired it out in the Amsterdam News. They would call up the Amsterdam News, and it would be in the Amsterdam News. Blah blah blah. You know, and one time they put Sonny Grosso in with me, and Sonny said, "Well, I guess I can't work with you anymore." That's the way you get through these things, Bill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are the things that I remember.
For our listeners and fans, can you give us a difference between like the Black Liberation Army and BLM?
Oh,
no,
I have to tell you, there's a world of difference. Whatever BLM is doing, however they started out for what they wanted to do, and what it turned into, and what it turned into. No, the Black Liberation Army started out to kill cops, and they ended up, after we got them, they were killing cops. That's exactly what they did. Yes, the Black Liberation Army, they did hit. Here we go. I'm giving you an opening line here, Bill. They did hit a bar where all the numbers money would come at the end of the day, and they hit that bar just to get the money so that they could keep going. They did things like that, but no, the Black BLM is not out dedicated to kill cops. No, they're not.
Randy, someone just asked me to tell you that they're watching this with your former partner on the mosque case, D.
Who?
D. That's what he's called. Bill Ryan from Ryan Investigation says he's watching with the former partner on the mosque case named D. That's all he's saying. He's not giving any more information than that. Bill Ryan, could you give me any more information than that? He's not ringing a bell.
It would be Vito. You know, my partners were Sonny Grosso, Vito.
Maybe he doesn't. He's not giving me enough information. He doesn't want to out him on the air here. But this is a fascinating case, and I'm sure, even to this day, even though you know so much more and probably know who the shooter is and know who all the players are. It's
Louis 17X Dupree.
Right.
We went through 2 trials with him. It's Louis 17X Dupree. I mean, was I there? No. There were 2 other Muslims that saw him do it. And one of them is Foster 2X Thomas, that lived with me for 2 years, 2.5 years, running almost up to Canada, out to Jersey. I don't want to exaggerate, but, literally running for our lives.
Right.
And
what did you say that you're talking about? You had to keep him, you cared for him? You made sure that,
oh yeah,
because he gave you this information that you would protect him?
No, the first thing I did, when I keep saying there are other people involved here. The first thing that we did is we put him in the grand jury. I mean, he stayed in the grand jury until that whole story was out. And once that story was out, he walked out of the grand jury, and in 5 minutes, the light went on, and we indicted Louis 17X Dupree. We absolutely did. And from that point on, when I got him after Frank, when I got him, Foster 2X Thomas, and I went to the FBI office, after we finished off the cannolis and stuff like that, I called the DA, and the DA met me 9, 10 o'clock at night down in Manhattan. And I went down there with him in Manhattan. We had a stenographer and 2 other witnesses, and we kept them there for about an hour and a half. And when the DA was satisfied that he was, the DA said to me, "Here's $40, which I owe him to today. He never lets me forget it." And he said, "Run." I said, "Well, I think he says, "I don't want to know. Don't tell me, don't tell anybody where you're going." And I didn't. And so we ran. And the first motel that I found is where we stayed. And the first night that we were together, he said to me, "You're going to kill me." And I said, "No, I'm not." I said, "But I'm going to stay awake that you don't kill me." Because and I don't know who you called or whatever it is.
How long does this go on with you with this guy?
2 years.
Oh my God. Wow.
2 years.
Hey, Bill, can you run off the people that are tuning in tonight, and also
Sure.
our new Patreon subscribers? I got to hit the head up.
Randy,
Frank,
no, that's
Frank,
Mark.
Mark, before you go.
No, I'm
yes,
not going nowhere. I'm coming right back.
It was 2 years for me. It was 6 years for Joe Pistone.
Wow.
6 years being Donnie Brasco, undercover.
Randy, the partner was Marino Di Cristina.
Oh,
That's D. Okay. So now
Yes.
you recognize who it is. I
Yes.
just want to shout out to a bunch of our people on the live chat: Dookie 4000, Black Rose, Vinny Flores, of course, Ryan Investigative Group, Dawn Marie, John Arbeya, Vinny Flores, Cat in the Hat, MC's Audio, big fan of ours, Elise D, John Arbeya, Blondie 1025, and Pete Pranzo, Rachella Pranzo, Bob Geis, big fan of ours. Bob Geis also did he did a case for on Investigation Discovery, The Perfect Murder. He did a double homicide from the 2-4 with Nikki Silas, and I forget the other name, but he did a great job on that case.
All good guys.
The 2-4.
All right, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man.
And Randy, you know something? This case is like so fascinating, but I don't think we can cover everything tonight because it's just too much. Would you come back at another time?
Yes, I will.
Love to have you back.
Let me part with a few things. When I speak about this case, when I get going, and there's an audience, or I speak to people, they usually leave the room and they don't sleep that night. You know, this is very upsetting. You know, and I recognize that. But let me leave you with this. As of 2 weeks ago, Circle of Six was optioned. Now that doesn't necessarily mean, and they optioned it to make a film. I've been here before a couple of times, but I've not been this close. So keeping our fingers crossed, you know, and I certainly will keep you guys posted as to how this shakes out.
It's a fascinating story. I can't believe it hasn't been made into a movie yet because it is such a fascinating story.
I would imagine it'd be difficult now because they'd want to flip it. You know, they want to take something like this story and make all those people angels and the cops the devil. So I'm just saying, be wary, because I know they're going to option it, but they're going to want to flip the script, man. There's no way they're going to tell the story the way it really should be told.
You know, everybody today is defunding, disbanding. You know, instead of the cops being part of the solution, they've made them part of the problem. So if you want to go back to 1972, 1973, 1974, this is a clear case of a community being exactly against the cops. And then you had a community that was actually executing them. So that the story that couldn't be told back then is the story probably that can't be told today.
I'm hoping that you get greenlit. I see the way they're picking the stories nowadays, what they did with the way they see us, or whatever the name of that nonsense was, told from the point of view from the parents. Of course, all your kids are angels. You know what I'm saying? Of course they're angels, but that's not what happened. And this is 100 times worse. I can't imagine that this is going to get greenlit or somebody's going to, because who's going to watch it? Who's your audience right now? You know?
Yeah, you're making a lot of sense. I mean, Randy, this is for cops. This is a story where there was never really justice.
They were flipping. They were flipping. You would turn out to be the guy who held them hostage for 2 years, trying to get him to confess to a crime that he didn't commit.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you've read the book or not. And Bill, you said you're going to read the book.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
Well, you know, I was drummed out of the job. I had a grocery store list disobeying. I had, they wouldn't let me stay. It was either perp walk or get out. And so I got out 19 days before I had 20 years. They wouldn't give it to me. They absolutely would not give it to me. They broke me from first grade to second grade and took 60 days, 60 days pay from me. Did I deserve some of it? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I went, look, I went far. You can't do this. As soon as they said you can't do this, that's it.
Right. But Randy, you had a pretty damn good life. You had a damn good life even without the police department. You got involved in the movie business. You became an actor. You know, I bet you even banged a few starlets here and there.
Hey, listen, I got it.
I plead the fifth.
It's a phenomenal story.
Plead the fifth. Listen, listen. I am the cop in The Godfather that kills James Caan in the toll booth. I shoot Sonny Grosso.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
If you're running The Godfather and you get to that scene, stop it.
Sonny got
whacked. Of course, I was a lot younger, but yes.
I love when Sonny got mad. We whacked Philip Tattaglia at 10 o'clock this morning.
I would love, you know what? I would green light it because I would love to see a movie like this, something that turns it on its head and actually shows you what it's really about, what's going on here. It's an amazing story. Like Bill mentioned earlier, we'd love to have you back. We'd love to find out what's the result if this thing is going to get greenlit. I want a part. Bill wants a part.
Yeah, we all want parts in this movie.
All right. I promise you I'll leave you with this. So it's 1971. And we're in the 2-8. Sonny and I are in the 2-8. Downstairs calls up and says, hey, there's a guy here who says he's Patsy Fuca. He's been in jail. He's come out. He's Patsy Fuca. He wants to come up and see you. Well, we know without saying that they've tossed him, you know. So upstairs he comes and he walks in, all 5'6" of him. He walks in and he says, you, Sonny Grosso. And of course, I got my hand on my gun and this, that. And Sonny says, yeah. And he says, I hear you're going to make a movie. And he says, yeah. He says, well, Sonny, he says, Boyd Lancaster better play me. He turns around and walks out of the precinct. That's the truth.
Who was the guy again?
Patsy Fuca. That's the case that we busted. Well, I didn't bust it in 1962. That's the start of the French Connection. It started in 1962. Patsy Fuca.
That's unbelievable.
And of course, Tony Lobianco plays him, in the movie.
That used to be my favorite movie for years, The French Connection. And then when I realized that case was over 110 pounds of heroin, and sometimes they get that in a car stop now, you know?
Right.
Yeah. It's a different time.
Yeah.
But anyway, listen, before we go, let's give a shout out to our new Patreon subscribers, Carol Holderman, Ron Sanchez, and Carol Waters. Her husband, Rob Mahone, is actually the one he uses his wife's thing because he's.
I just want to give an explanation also to our live chat people. Our YouTube live chat thing got screwed up with a password, a security thing. So now they froze us for a couple of weeks. I'm waiting for the new password before we can get monetized again. So my own incompetence on the computer caused this. So as a result, we're not going to make our first million for years now. So we're not able to get money from our live chats. But as far as the Patreon too, if you want to become a Patreon subscriber, it's www.patreon.com/policeoffthecuff. And please, if you're not a subscriber to our YouTube page, please hit that button. I'm learning all this stuff from Duty Ron, and a lot of you Duty Ron fans are becoming Police Off the Cuff fans. Our guest tonight was one of the most fascinating guests we've had so far, and we're going to have to bring him back. This story is too fascinating. There's too many angles to it. And, you know, once he gets this movie, I want a part. I won't go nude, though, because I'm Irish, and I don't have to explain anything else.
Okay. All right. Listen, guys, thank you for having me. And please keep up the good work. Please keep up the good work.
Thank you, Randy. We're trying to give some good morale to the cops that are still on the job now, and to tell them all is not hopeless, because in 1972, it seemed more hopeless than any time right now, right?
God.
And to people listening tonight, the guys and gals, were sponsored by Best Hot Sauce in the World, Silk City Hot Sauce. It is made from small batches with pure ingredients. Locally grown peppers are the foundation of every bottle of Silk City Hot Sauce. Jump on board and go to silkcityhotsauce.com. Put in OTC off the cuff for a 15% discount. And Randy Jurgensen, it was such an honor. And I could listen to you for days. And like Bill said, we'd love to have you back.
Okay.
So
tomorrow,
Randy, the thing is, I like to tell war stories too, but I usually only do it when I'm drinking, though, and I'm drinking more. I'm drinking Poland Spring here, because my war stories get better as I keep drinking,
Listen, Bill,
yeah.
Frank, get $1 on 627 tomorrow.
yeah. If I'm going to run the number, I'm going to give you a call.
Wait, I'm going to write that 627. All right, Randy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Police
I'm
off the
gonna play
cuff.
that tomorrow.
Thank you so much. You're the man,
Take
Randy.
care, guys.
Appreciate it.
Take care. Thank
Bye
you.
now.